Assalamualaikum and good evening to everyone. Welcome to our forum. My name is Nurulhuda Azfar Binti Mohamad Johari George as your moderator for today. We are here to discuss forum about literature, which is poem. Before we go further, I want to thank to everyone for being here today. Our topic today will be discussed by dedicated panel. So panel 1 is Nur FATNI ADLINA binti Mohamad FAZULI. Next, Nur ATIQAH binti ABDUL Aziz is panel 2. Lastly, panel 3, Nur FARAHANA binti Mohamad HOIRI. So without wasting our time, I will introduce about the poem. Poem is one type of the old poetry that is very widely known in language spoken and composed in the archipelago region in Southeast Asia, especially Malaysia. It is the simplest and basically consists of two lines that have a rhythmic bone and have the same pronunciation at the end. This line can be grouped into 4, 6, or 8 lines. There are rarely poems that exceed 8 lines, and usually poems consist of 4 lines. The poem is divided into 2 parts with the same number of verses, which is the foreshadowing part and is followed by the meaning of the poem. A poem is a piece of writing in which the words are chosen for their beauty and sound and are carefully arranged, often in short line which reads. A poem is a piece of writing that uses imaginative words to share ideas, emotion, or a story with the reader. A person who writes a poem is called a poet. Many poems have words of praise that sound good together when they are read aloud. Poem is a type of traditional poetry of the community that has existed since time immemorial. According to history, poem has existed since the time when the Malay community did not know how to read and write anymore. Poem we create as a form of speech to convey thought and feeling towards someone or about something, in addition to aiming to satirize, joke, and give advice, as well as to have fun. Panel 1, why do you think that this cultural heritage is still important or relevant to the younger generation?
Thank you, moderator. In today's literary society, poetry or poem is still important or significant to the younger generation because poetry has the ability to express a writer's thoughts and emotions through flowing words. Poetry can be conveyed in a more subtle manner without the use of straight factual sentences. Even among young people, it is critical for the use of words that can be used to express feelings, opinions, or to describe something in nature, people, or a person's attitude as a specific advice. It is also a way for a young people's writer to express their madness, regrets, desires, aspirations, and belief system. Poetry is the deep or powerful expression of the human condition. This is due to the importance of this world being taught and expanded upon from schools and to universities among young people. It is still relevant to use because at school or university events, they will always include a poem as the opening or closing of the event. And we can see how those events affected ordinary people by reading their poem. Other than that, poem conventions are still held today as a way for young people to face challenges by writing grammatical poems. Besides that, poems are also important throughout history because they provide a historical picture of what previous generation considered beautiful, important, or profound. It is capable of displaying words and concepts from the past. Poetry can be used to describe historical events as well. Poets in the past may have written poems in response to major events. The use of each beautiful verse will elicit an emotional response from those who hear it. As a result, the poem remain important and relevant for today's generation. As a result, all parties must work together to maintain literary learning so that beautiful language becomes a symbol of the Malay people in how they treat others in formal events. That's all.
Thank you, Penawan, with the good explanation. Penasu, how can we cultivate the interest of the younger generation to preserve this cultural heritage? What are the measures that can be taken?
How can we cultivate the interest of the younger generation to preserve the poem? Is by telling them the importance of poetry and making it fun. For the example, the school can simply use music to teach the students or use picture poetry. Use puns because young people love fun. The school should also take a step-by-step approach with the students. For example, by playing music and helping them see within the lyric of the song. Then tell them that music is poetry. They would appreciate it better. For the measures that can be taken, first, focus on one form at a time. Unless you're only spending a day on the poetry, there are plenty of chances for poetry to be broken down simpler. Introduce a form or two in one class. Explain the rules in depth and give simple and easy examples. People who are invested in the subject will see progress in their writing and feel like they are growing as writers, while those who don't care will at least think they have less work to do. The second one is discuss with your peers. While the awkward concept of forcing young adults to speak to one another on their work can be intimidating, there is no better person to talk to about your work than someone close to your age. They will probably understand the subject better than a teacher or parents. That's all from me for your question.
Thank you, Nur Atika, for explaining it. Next, Nur Farahana, what are the impact of the cultural heritage to the economy and to the tourism sector in our country?
The impact of poem cultural heritage on the national economy is to increase national income. This can be seen when many universities have produced students who think rationally, and many have produced students who love the field of literature and will eventually produce national writers who love traditional poetry, especially poems. So, when they have succeeded in becoming national literati, who are already known internationally, they will start publishing many books, such as poetry books. This is so that the young generation, regardless of age, can learn poems in an easy way when they have a book of poems as a reference for them to learn to make poems. The cultural heritage of this poem can increase the country's income through the marketing of books in the form of poems. While the impact of poem cultural heritage on the tourist sector in our country is that we can attract the interest of people from abroad to come to our country. This is because the poems that will be delivered are part of the old culture that was transmitted by the old Malay community that does not exist in their country. Poems are widely used in daily life activities and cultural arts of the Malay community such as in games, entertainment, public gatherings, customs, or ceremony, so they can see for themselves the culture of this poem used in the society of our country. Tourists from abroad can see for themselves that the Malay community attaches great importance to poems culture. For example, they can see that the Malay community values nobility, hence the Vitwi poems was born. The religious culture and culture of the Malays emphasize the aspect of between. Pantun Budi teaches people to be virtuous. Indirectly, tourists will be more attracted by the attitude of Malaysians who practice good manners, and tourists will be happier when they are in Malaysia. That's all from me.
Thank you, Farahana, with the good explanation. I want to ask you all, do you guys wish that this cultural heritage will be practiced by the future generation?
I will start first. Yes, I want the next generation to continue practicing Malay poetry because poem is viewed as work with aesthetic elements as well as specific message that are attempting to highlight to society. The process of conveying this message is embroidered with beautiful language and diction appropriate to the literary words of traditional Malay poetry that has existed for centuries. This poem is also the nation's identity, and it must be taken into consideration so that it is not ignored or discarded. This is because the younger generation will learn and practice using this beautiful language in everyday life or on special occasions. As a result, the time has come for local literary works passed down from generation to generation to become a competitive tool and showcase the artist's wisdom in writing poetry so that the poetry learning industry continues to excel in the eyes of all the world. Next.
I wish that this cultural heritage will be practiced by the future generation because an examination of whether the society still needs poetry and poems that indicates poetry has a critical position in modern language. Despite the decreasing popularity of poetry, the art still matters and it should play an important role in the society like other forms of art. That's all for me.
Okay, for me, yes, I want the cultural heritage of poems to be practiced by future generations because poem is a national art that has been handed down from previous generations to this post-independence generations. The poem is rich in fine art of words and beautiful rhythms that also symbolize the greatness and expertise of the Malay community in the field of language. Traditional poetry is now also preserved and given emphasis by the knowledge lovers so that it's not eroded by the current of changing times that swallow the Malay culture from the nations. Next, the literary component introduced in the Malay language syllabus is a smart effort so that poems can be exposed to them at young age. Therefore, this can foster the love of students or the younger generations for language skills, especially rhyming poem skills. Not only that, but my hope is that the next generation is also expected to be able to produce poems like the previous generation of our ancestors. That's all from me.
Thank you guys for a good explanation. I want to ask, have any of you ever answered a poem competition?
I am one of those who have participated in a poetry writing contest because we had to compete in asking and answering poems. It was the best experience. It's a response to one another. So from that, I was able to take on the challenge of writing poems and overcome my fear to answering each question in response to the poems. I also want to intend and compete in poetry contest again in the future. Do you want to join with me?
Yes, of course, we will join. We will join
Of
you.
course, I will.
That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Panel 1, for sharing. So I want to conclude this forum. In conclusion, poem is a type of traditional poetry of the Malay community that has existed since time immemorial. Poem we create as a form of speech to convey thought and feeling towards someone or about something. Poems are widely used nowadays, for example, at formal events, government events, and so on. So it is not surprising that poem can be shown and can be preserved the heritage for future generation. Now we come to the end of this forum. So I would like to thank to all panel, thanks for sharing and information and opinions with us today. Thank you once again, and we meet again in another forum. Thank you.